Welcome to the Father Knowts podcast, and I am your host, Warren W. Patten Jr., or you can call me Father Patten. Father Knowts is an informational style podcast created to give fathers a voice in their family structure. I encourage fathers to take back fatherhood and shake the trees of tradition to create a stronger family unit. We'll also delve into men's health, leadership, mentorship, and so much more. Okay, men, it's time to be a better father on purpose. Welcome in, fathers. I hope you're doing well. It is 2026, and we got to turn it up. Fatherhood must become very important in the family structure, and that is why I am doing this podcast. This podcast really came from the book that only you can get from me called Father Knowts. That's it right there, being a better father on purpose. I'm the only one with the copies. You have to go to my website at www.warrenwpattenjr.com, and Patten is spelled with Patten. So you have to get that because today's episode is from the book Father Knowts, Being a Better Father on Purpose. It is Father Knowts number 11 or chapter 11. It's on page 23. So we're going to get right into it because this was heavy on my heart after experiencing a few things with my sons and what they're going through. And they called me to get just a little bit more advice on how they can navigate the family structure and also people around them. So I'm going to be sharing some things on the screen. And as you see, I got my ticker going across. This episode is about self-love comes from self-discipline. Self-love comes from self-discipline. And I'm going to break down a few things that I think it's key to set boundaries and be aware of in your family structure, especially as a father when you have a son. But this also works, I believe, even more for daughters. There's a different dynamic in the family structure when you have sons and daughters. And when you have all sons, yes, it's a different kind of situation. If you have all daughters, a different situation. But fatherhood and parenthood, that pretty much is the standard. So no matter what children you have, the father has to set the stage on how the family structure is. The mother is there. I'm not saying the mother doesn't do it, but the father brings in the balance. And when the mother brings the emotion, the father brings the logic behind it. And that's what I'm going to talk to you about today. Self-love comes from self-discipline. Now, I'm going to read a little bit to you because it's in my book, and I don't want to miss a thing, but I'm also going to bring it up on the screen as much as possible. So let me read a little something that I put in my book, Father Knowts. Okay. Now, I just, really talked about the focus of being for your son. So I said, son, be aware of those closest to you. They are crafty. They are always up to something, and they have an agenda. They will try to take advantage of your kindness, so you must be sharp. And I'm talking about family members. Yes, your peers are going to do the same thing, but I'm talking in the family structure. You got to be very careful in the family structure. And as a father, you have to protect your family from the family. Yes, I did say that. You got to be able to protect your family from the family. Your family and your wife's family or your girlfriend's family, whatever the situation. You have to protect your family from the family. So let's talk about it. Self-love and self-discipline. So I start there because fathers sometimes put everybody's as priorities over themselves. But fathers, I got to tell you, you got to love yourself. You got to take care of yourself so that you can be there for the family. And if you're not on top of things, if you're not 100%, you cannot help the family. So I say self-love is so very important. It seems selfish. I know people gonna say, why are you thinking about yourself? You have to think about yourself, your health, your physical health, your emotional health, and that emotional health and mental health comes from setting boundaries in your family so that you can feel about yourself. And then with that comes that self-discipline. If you can discipline yourself on things, that makes it easier for you to discipline your family. I had to test myself. Now, I've always said in season one, there's a lot of things about me that are different, and I did them on purpose. I am not a drinker. I am not a smoker. I did those things on purpose. And I have my reasons, but aside from those reasons, that's what I decided to go to. So there was no alcohol in my family. I made that early on, made that decision before I met my girlfriend slash wife. But when I met her, that became a boundary already. I said, man, we don't do that. I don't do that. And you can't be with me if you want to do that. Boundary set. She agreed. Hey, we just like that. I'm just telling you. So when you set your boundaries early, it makes it easier for you to make simple decisions and you can better control yourself. Because if you have that boundary in place, you got to follow it. Then your children follow in your footsteps. You hope, and that's not always the case, but you give them a very good chance to follow in your footsteps when you practice what you preach. You've heard that before. I know you've heard that before. So let's get right into it. Now, I want to get into the family structure when it comes to those things that you hear and see. And sometimes we get so used to it because that's what we hear in our family growing up. But some of those things I did not want to hear in my family. So in my book, I talk about the blame game. Ooh, somebody has to be the blame, and the blame gets tossed around. So I tell you what, let's start first of all with self-discipline because I got some definitions for you. Self-discipline, the ability to control one's feelings and overcome one's weaknesses, done despite temptation to abandon it. So you have to really work on your self-control. And I know we all have our vices, but if you're working on it and you're doing it for the right reason, and sometimes the right reasons are for you, but really the right reason is for your children, for your family. That's the big reason why I didn't do some of the things that I said I wasn't going to do, because I wanted my sons to see me as a father who did not use profanity, as a father who did not use alcohol, because I wanted them to see how you can be brilliant, how you can be loving, how you can be vulnerable with all of that extra. Just do it because that's what you want to do. So that is the key. Now I'm going back to the blame game. I got ahead of myself, but that's okay. I'm going back to the blame game. Now let's talk about the blame game. Now, when I share with you these definitions, I just want to want you to look for some of the things that they have in common. So blame, assign responsibility for a fault or a wrong in a negative light. Now, when you're growing up, we sometimes hear family members say, who did that? I bet you I know who did it. She did it. He did it. His little railhead self, he did it. And they bring in all of the adjectives and they blame somebody. They don't know who did it, but they like to toss around the blame. As a father, you have to nip that in the bud. You got to say, hey, let's do some research before we start blaming everybody for everything that's wrong in this house. Because we are a group, we are a united group, and we share in the responsibility. So we don't need to be tossing around the blame because blame is negative. It's right there in the definition. Can't you see it? Blame is negative. So you got to really stop some of that. So and so hit me in the head. Stop. What happened to you? Okay, let's find out who did it. Don't go around talking and just blurting out information about what someone did. If it's your family, you can do that. You can do that. So that was blame. I know you see it on the screen. I got something else I want to share with you now. Guilt. Now I'm going to read it because I don't want you to miss anything. Guilt. Make someone feel guilty especially in order to reduce them to do something. Guilt comes from a negative evaluation of one's behavior. So just like blame, people throw around guilt. I bet you're not going to do good in school because you're a dummy. Mm, your grades are low. I understand why you're not doing well. Mm, there's so many, and I don't want to give you all the examples, but you've heard them. When they throw around that guilt, it's someone else's fault, not yours, someone else's fault. Always blaming someone else. I didn't do nothing. I didn't do nothing. I did not realize there are so many grown people still saying, I didn't do nothing when they were caught on camera. But that's the kind of habits that have been formed in families. But as a father, you got to step in and say, stop that. We're going to find out who did what. But we don't need to walk around and say, I didn't do. No, 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 no. We will find out because it's just us here. So that guilt has to be dealt with. And the father has to put the foot down on guilt and don't pass it around because once you let it get started, it's tough to stop. I'm telling you now. Once blame and guilt gets tossed around, passed around, shared, it's hard to reel it back in. So you have to really start on that immediately. You got to give the father look as soon as you hear it. You just have to do it. All right, we talked about self-discipline. We talked about blame. We talked about guilt. I got another one for you. Shame. Ooh, shame. Now, shame is a feeling that your whole self is wrong. And it may not be related to a specific behavior or an event. Shame arises from a negative evaluation of the self. So many times children are growing up, going through the stages of learning and growing, and peer pressure and also sibling pressure can make children feel a certain kind of way, especially sons. And that's the reason I put the attention on sons because sometimes girls have more words than little boys. So sons have to be lifted up a little bit more so that they can have a voice and they can learn how to navigate when a girl is talking twice as much as they are. You gotta say, stop, little Miss Princess, little Mr. Prince, talk to me. Then when he gets interrupted, stop, talk to me. And let's take as long as you want. That shame is so deep. It's your fault. You're the reason why the house is nasty. You're the reason why your room is nasty. You're the reason why I can't do what I need to do. Shame is not necessary in the family structure because you have to uplift your family, boys and girls, as well as the mother. So shame can't enter into that, but it's a part of our DNA as we're growing up. And we have to nip that in the bud as well. So shame is so very, that negative thing, that negative evaluation of the self. You have to lift your children up and make them feel good about what they do, even if they're not as good as another sibling. Now, I have 5 sons, and each one of them had different levels of athleticism, different levels of education, and their intellect. But we had to find the things that they did well. Some could draw, were great artists. Some were great at math. Some were great at reading. Some were great athletes. Some were not. Some were great at music, band, all of the above. So we had to uplift them on what they were good at and not shame them because they weren't good in athletics as another child, or the other child wasn't as good at drawing than another child. You have to uplift that. So that shame, ooh, it's a powerful thing. So many of us grow up with it. Don't let it enter into your family structure. I beg of you. So as a father, you have to be looking for these things. And that's the reason why I came up with this, because sometimes it is so tough. There are so many things happening and you just look past some of the things that's happening. So when you hear or see blame, You got to stop it right there. Say, oh, stop. Don't say that. When you see or hear guilt, you got to stop it. And also shame. If you see that, you got to stop it. And that also means, I know this is tough, you got to be bold enough, confident enough to talk to the mother. If she is exhibiting any of this, because it's easy to do, but you also have to do it in a professional way. Sometimes you have to wait till all of the young people go to bed and you have to talk to her. Say, hey, you dished out a whole lot of shame tonight. That's unnecessary. Let's bring it back and uplift our sons, uplift our daughters without the shame. They are still learning, they're still growing. We got to think about when we were coming up. And some of those things that were said about me, I'm gonna be really honest with you. I did not like when I was told certain things about myself that weren't true. It was all in the blame, the shame, and the guilt. I worked through it. I didn't have much help working through it, but I worked through it. But that really convinced me that I need to help my sons work through it because they may not be able to navigate it like I did. I was just a little on the other side of crazy. I just didn't care what people said about me. And sometimes I did what they said. I was, Warren, you crazy. Yeah, you. Thank you. I'm glad you recognize that. Now, excuse me. So, all of those words and their definitions had something in common. Let me share it with you. They had the word negative in the definition. I didn't put it in there. I researched each one of those words. And when I wrote down the definitions on one sheet of paper, I was like, each one of them have the word negative in them. It's just amazing. So I always have been a very positive person. That's why it really irks me when I see negativity in the blame, negativity in the guilt, negativity in the shame. So I just always have been positive, but I didn't know exactly how to share that, how to express that around negative people. There are some out there. Yes, they are. They live with us. So, as a positive person, I just couldn't sit any longer and allow them to spit out their negativity. So, I would always figure out how I can change it into a positive. If they said something negative, I tried to share something that was positive. And of course, if I did, they would look at me. What you trying to say? I'm just saying, everything is not negative. There's a positive side to most everything, but you have to find it. And as a father, you got to be the one to talk to them and share with them what's positive. I still bring up the example of one of my sons. I know he struggled with math and he just could not, in the fourth grade, he could not get those multiplication facts. And he was getting blamed and shamed and he was guilted into thinking he was not going to be very good. But I had to work at the kitchen table after dinner. We did those multiplication facts, and I worked with him, and I said, "You can do this." Everybody, sometimes math comes easy to some people and not so easy to others, but math can be done. And he became very good at those multiplication facts, and that opened up the doors for him to think he can do most anything. I had to bring in the positivity. I was clapping. I almost had all my sons in there. They was applauding him when he get was 4 times 4, 16. Oh boy, we was celebrating like crazy. So sometimes you have to bring the positive in and you got to create the positive atmosphere when everything seems so negative. You got to create the positive atmosphere. Change that negative to a positive. That will help you in your self love. That will help you in your self discipline. If you can change the narrative and get rid of those negative aspects in the family structure, they're going to be there. You just can't ignore them. You got to address them immediately. And I don't care if it is the mother who's doing it, you still have to address it. That's what a father does. So I'm gonna back it up just a little bit, change a negative to a positive. And that's what I wanted to talk to you about. Self-love, comes from self-discipline. If you can work on yourself enough to feel good about yourself, it's going to show in your family structure, and your sons are going to look at you and say, man, he is always on. He's always positive. And I wasn't always on, but around them, I tried to give them the image that, yes, it's going to be okay. We got this. Even when there were times when I was not working. And I knew they knew that. But I was doing some things to make money. Gift basket business, people. I created a gift basket business when I was not working. And that's what kept us afloat. Along with my wife, of course. But I found a way to make some money. Now, back then, I didn't call it a hustle because it was a business. I'm telling you, create a business so that your sons can see it's not over. It's just beginning. So thank you once again for attending second season of Father Notes, the podcast. I'll be sending out more and more shorts. I hope you follow, like, and subscribe to my YouTube channel, but they are also available on Spotify, iHeartRadio, YouTube Music, Apple Music, yes, Amazon Music, Amazon Podcast, yes, it is out there. So I'm just trying to do what I can to bring fatherhood back to the family structure, and this is my way of doing it. So thank you for listening. Hey, Father Patten, once again, I'm signing out. Have a good one. Thanks for joining the Father Notes podcast. Please like, share, and subscribe to the YouTube channel at Warren W. Patten Jr. That's Patten Jr. Follow our socials on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Father, make the choice to use your voice